So, My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 326 came out very early this week. So, in this video, I'm going to do a discussion on what we saw and what we read in that chapter, and potentially how All Might or even Toshinori may have to kill Stain. Yeah, we're going to talk about that right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I'm here to discuss with you the most recent chapter of My Hero Academia, Manga Chapter 326, as well as talk about some slight differences between the official and unofficial translations, because overall, when it comes to this chapter, we just had a strong focus on the conversation between Stain and Toshinori. And I specifically bring up Toshinori is because of how Stain viewed Toshinori in this moment and how he didn't view him as All Might, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when it comes to the differences between the official and unofficial translations. But the main point of this video that I want to talk about once I go over the differences in the chapter is going to be on the question of, will Stain be killed by All Might or Toshinori? Will Toshinori be able to kill All Might? That is the question that we're going to address. But before we get more into that, as well as the differences, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't done so, to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Manga Man Drew, where I talk about My Hero Academia, I cover the spoilers, I do the reviews, and I also do these discussion videos. So if that's something that you're interested in, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And without the way, let's get into the differences. So when it comes to the differences between the official and unofficial translations for this chapter, the main differences come within Stain and how he views All Might as Toshinori or Toshinori as not being All Might, and that the differences between the official and unofficial translations could lead to different implications on whether or not Stain knew that Toshinori was actually All Might. So let's start off with the first difference between the official and unofficial translation, and it comes in at the moment where Stain is saying that Toshinori is no longer All Might, or that Toshinori isn't All Might, and there is a slight difference between the official and unofficial translations. Because in the unofficial translations, you have Stain saying, impossible, you can't be All Might. You can't be All Might, even after Toshinori shows him that he is All Might. That is what is shown in the unofficial translation. But in the official translations, he says that you are not All Might, or you're not All Might, and he repeats that again. And that's actually a really distinct difference, because can't would mean that he cannot be. It means that there is no way that Toshinori could be All Might, which we know isn't the case. But by Stain saying that you're not All Might, that is a very accurate description, because in this moment, Toshinori does not have the same mindset that he had when he was All Might. He may have wanted to be All Might to save people and to protect them, but he has come into this different mindset where he thinks that the world doesn't need All Might, even though they do need All Might, if not the person All Might as what he represented and the ideals. And it kind of makes sense that Stain would say that you're not All Might and saying that you can't be All Might because of the implication that we see at the end of this chapter, which I'll get to very soon. And before we get to continuing on with that major difference when it comes to Stain and his realization of who Toshinori actually is, there are actually two small distinct differences between the official and unofficial translations when it comes to specific dialogue that is being said. The first one comes when All Might, or should I say Toshinori, is talking about how he wanted to be a hero and how he saw how the world was. And in the unofficial translation, he brings up the idea that he couldn't stand seeing people having their stuff stolen, as well as seeing people steal from other people. So that is what he says in the unofficial translation, but in the official translation, he brings up more of how he hates how the world or the madness keeps taking away from people, and how daily lives are being stolen away as well, implying that he's not specifically talking about a specific people stealing, but just talking about just the tragedies in the world, the madness in the world, which could lead to stealing. It could be like literally madness, or it could just be natural disasters. It just makes sense for All Might or Toshinori to think of like the horrors that are happening to the world and the people to be more broad, instead of it just being specific crimes done from person to person. So it just makes a little bit more sense in the official translation than in the unofficial translation. And that same idea can be applied to another difference between the translations, because in the unofficial translations, you have Stain explaining that this woman who is cleaning the statue is coming from a nearby shelter, and how she may be staying there, and how the reasoning why she's allowed to come out is because she's staying in that shelter and the people are approving of her doing that. But in the official translation, it implies that she's doing this of her own free will, and that even though she may be in a shelter nearby, she's leaving on her own, and that she's able to do that because the shelter doesn't see any harm or inconvenience of her leaving. So the idea of it is that in the official translation, it shows that she's more doing it on her own, of her own free will, while in the unofficial translation, it just seems as if she's allowed to do it by the people that she's staying with in the shelter. And I think once again, it just makes more sense in the official translation than in the unofficial translation. And then we get to the last major difference of this chapter, and it comes in after Toshinori finally realizes the error of his ways, or that he was thinking too negatively about the entire situation. And it comes from what Stain says in the unofficial translation. Because in the unofficial translation, Stain talks about how a hero only exists for others, and how if a god has fallen from grace and gained the heart of a weak man, or maybe implying that he knows that Toshinori is actually All Might, which he then immediately rejects, saying that he just doesn't know who he is. And how he says it could imply that he knows, or it could imply that he doesn't know. But in the official translation, it's pretty much stated that he knew, because he once again brings up the idea in the official translation when it comes to Stain that, let's say a god has fallen, prostrated upon the earth, and his divine soul has turned feeble and mortal. That is a direct reference to what All Might was doing when we last saw Stain hiding behind the building, seeing All Might in this prostrated position on the ground. So yeah, it's pretty much stated straight up in the official translation that Stain knew that Toshinori was All Might, but that the purpose of his speech in saying that he's not All Might is because he doesn't see All Might in Toshinori at this moment, but that he could potentially believe him if he uses the information in reference to Toshinori, using the information that was given to him by Stain to come find him and end him, because that's also a slight difference between the official and unofficial when it comes to how Stain tells All Might to come after him. Because in the unofficial translation, Stain says to come end me, the man who has murdered 40 heroes, but in the official translation, he says come for the life of Stain, the man who murdered 40 heroes. And you could say that, oh, end could mean to kill him, or it means to like put him down, or it could mean to like bring him to justice. You could like wiggle out of that. But in the official translation, Stain is just telling All Might, telling Toshinori to come use that information to literally kill him, to end his life. And this is where we get into the more discussion of this video of, can All Might or will All Might kill Stain? Because we have to remember and realize this. All Might, Toshinori, he was a hero, and there's this one thing that heroes aren't supposed to do, and it's I don't know, murder people. As we've seen, there are heroes who have murdered people, and yeah, they have not been seen in a good light. Lady Nagant just hated the fact that she had to kill people. Freaking Hawks as well. And when you really think about it, it makes sense that the two heroes that we saw kill villains were also the ones that were really like corrupted by the Hero Society, being forced to kill people by the Hero Safety Commission. So, you know, thematics there. But then you have Endeavor, who literally had someone want to kill him. And if you want to be technical, at least in the anime, we do see a moment of Endeavor killing a Nomu. Luckily enough, they're already dead. So even if you kill a Nomu, they're already dead. So, you know, let that morality fall away. But can Toshinori actually kill Stain and remain a hero? That is the interesting part, because here's the thing. Whether or not he's going to be a hero after, or if he even kills Stain, I do believe that All Might does have the ability to kill Stain. And you may be wondering, well, he couldn't kill All For One, which is true, but he probably thought that he left All For One in a state where he would not survive his injury. So at the very least, there may be a precedent for it. If I were to put my bets on whether or not Toshinori would kill Stain, I would actually say that it's very possible, because you also have to remember that one line that Gran Torino said that may be the reasoning why he's still alive is that death can also be a form of saving people. It could be a form of salvation. And even though he was saying that to Deku, we have to remember that Deku as a character is very similar to Toshinori as a character and why he became All Might. So the fact that Gran Torino is telling Deku that death may be an option, that can apply to Toshinori when it comes to Stain, and how maybe Stain's salvation, his redemption for the fact that he murdered 40 heroes, could be having the #1 hero, could be having the greatest hero, could be having All Might as Toshinori come and end his life. And maybe the reasoning why he says that is because he wants Toshinori, he wants All Might to end his life, because he realizes that his morals, his morality, his goals were still bad, but he still did it because he believed that it was still the best for society, and in some cases it was. So what's very interesting about this is that maybe Stain has accepted his role of being a villain and is willing to die for it, as long as it's in the hands of the hero that he looks up to the most, the person that he believes is the pinnacle of what it means to be a hero, which would be Toshinori, which would be All Might. So going down on possibilities on how I think this is going to happen, there are a few ways that this could happen. It could happen with Toshinori donning the name All Might once again and going into the shelter on his own, going to the location of Tartarus, conveying the information to the heroes, but still going out on his own and having a confrontation with Stain where he could either kill Stain, or there is also the possibility that this was all a test and to show that even though he's a hero, the main goal or the main line that heroes should never cross is to take the life of a villain, even if they are asking for it. So it could be a test, so when Toshinori and Stain eventually come to clash with each other, because that's just an inevitability at this moment, I could see it either having Toshinori somehow getting the upper hand upon Stain, Stain going full force against him, trying to kill him as if he was a true villain and he was just an ordinary hero, and either All Might accidentally killing him, purposely killing him, or convincing Stain that death doesn't have to be an option, that he doesn't have to die, to which then someone else comes and kills Stain and potentially injures All Might. That is a possibility, and that's all based on All Might Toshinori going in on his own. Or another possibility or another scenario is that All Might Toshinori tells everyone about it, they tell him to stay back, he convinces them to allow him to go, or he gets left behind and goes anyway, and then has the confrontation with Stain, and it leads to a very similar result. Either he's about to kill him, but then he either takes his own life potentially, or someone else kills Stain, or just showing more characterization for All Might, his willingness to kill Stain, and he goes through with it. So it's going to be very interesting just to see where this is going to be going in the story, and whether or not Toshinori is actually going to kill Stain, or should I say, if All Might is going to kill the hero killer. So I'm really hoping that it goes down that path, not only because it's going to be dark, but it's going to give a little bit more credence to the idea about how death is going to be a form of salvation, and potentially leading to certain villains such as Dabi, such as Shigaraki, and especially Stain potentially dying, but sort of kind of having a redemption, or sort of kind of being saved through death to end their suffering so that they don't have to live in this harsh world anymore. And depending on how they act, that may be what they want, as we've seen with Stain, who literally wants All Might to kill him. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this storyline or where this plot point is going, and I really can't see what decision Horikoshi can go with this, because I think probably the best decision that he can make is actually having All Might, actually having Toshinori kill Stain, or he could go the safer route of having Stain being actually saved by All Might sparing him, and then Stain is like, oh yes, you're right, you truly are All Might, I turn myself in. But I think that even with that second scenario, I think Stain has to die because of everything that he may represent. He represents the true flawed side of Hero Society, but as well as some of the truths, and that if he were to remain alive, there would still be a lot more controversies with the Hero Society. So I think that most likely what is going to happen is that All Might is going to confront Stain. They're going to have a fight. All Might is going to somehow get the upper hand and spare Stain, and Stain is going to accept this defeat, but then is going to be killed by some secondary force. And that secondary force could be Shigaraki, and that could also lead to All Might's death, which could lead to some involvement with Deku gaining One for All, and eventually leading to them clashing once again. Deku and Shigaraki, all for one versus One for All. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on this chapter. Maybe I missed something, but yeah, that's all I really want to talk about in this discussion video. There may be something else that I want to talk about in a later video. I may even do a prediction video on what we're going to be getting next chapter, but yeah, that's all I really have to say. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoyed this discussion. Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. Do you think that Toshinori, All Might, is going to kill Stain, or do you think that he's going to leave him alive and Stain is just going to accept that? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. Leave a like on the video if you liked it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like this type of content, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be notified for whenever I upload more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!